Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. This is the second in our series of career discussions with our mentors organized by the Harvard Business School Club of Singapore. And today we have a very interesting topic, which is careers in tech. To be honest, it's quite difficult to find a career that is not in tech these days, because tech is part of everything. In our earlier session, we had a discussion which was about real estate. We started talking about prop tech, right? And we're going to have a session about fintech. So honestly, tech is in everything. But in today's session, I think we're going to focus more in the traditional tech in terms of tech companies per se. And to that, we have two mentors who have generously volunteered to discuss with us their experiences and as well as share how we can get started in a career in tech. So we have Viju and we have Liz, and I'll let them introduce themselves. So this will be just before I pass it over to them, this will be a fireside chat or coffee chat. So there's no PowerPoint presentations. I'll lead with some questions, but if at any time, mentees, if you have any questions, please do raise them. You can speak. If you feel shy, you can also type it in the chat, right? But while we have Liz and Viju, and in fact, I think we have Shabnam, another mentor as well in the call. So while we have these mentors here on Zoom, please do take advantage of asking them any questions that you have on your mind. Okay, and with that, I'll pass it to Viju to introduce himself and then to Liz. So Viju, tell us about yourself.
Hi there. Hope you all are doing well today. I'm Viju Chakrapani, right? I've been in the industry for nearly 25 really good years. It's been really fun. After graduation, I had a bachelor degree in electrical and computer engineering, and then I completed my master's in business IT 5 years later. And around 5 years ago, did the general management program at Harvard Business School as well, right? So I think the journey has been interesting. I'll talk more about it and I'll give Liz an opportunity to introduce herself, and then we'll get into the details.
Thanks, Viju. Hey guys, I'm Liz. I have been working in tech for only 3 years. My journey has been long and winding, but I can go into that more later. And yeah, I actually went to, I know this is the Harvard Business School Club of Singapore, but I actually went to the London School of Economics. So, and I think I see our logo there, which is exciting. So I actually, without going into too much detail, I studied abroad when I was in university at LSE, and I went back to LSE and did my master's in accounting and finance. But I can go into that more later. But yeah. I think I can pass it on to the other mentor, Shabnam. Is that right?
I think Shabnam is listening in. She may be listening. Okay,
I'm sorry.
It's okay, no worries. So interesting. And we'll stick with you, Liz. So Liz, you mentioned that tech was not your first stop after school. You in fact started your career in another industry, and I know that some of the people on this call are looking at other industries as well. So maybe you can share a little bit about about how you progressed after leaving school, what made you choose those other industries, and what brought you to tech.
Oh my gosh, Adeline, I've worked in so many different industries.
The big ones.
So I guess actually my first job, I'll let you guys know, my first job out of college, I went to Georgetown for my first degree. I was a finance major, and my first job was actually in investment banking, which it's called mergers and acquisitions. And to be honest, I lasted about 6 months. It was just, the work-life balance wasn't there for me. Let's put it that way. I should have known this going in, but I found out later on that, I was like sleeping underneath my desk. I was like eating all my meals at the office, and not to scare you guys, but like, I cannot deal. Like, I think at one point I was eating like breakfast, lunch, and dinner at my desk, and I was like, this is not for me. So, 6 months after I joined investment banking, I said to myself, I'm smart enough to get myself out of the situation. What do I like to do? I like fashion. So most of my career was actually in fashion, luxury fashion. So I'm not trying to derail this. I know this is about tech, but I do promise you I work at tech. And so I worked first at Saks Fifth Avenue, which is a big US-based department store. And I joined, this thing is called the Executive Training Program, where you work in like different parts of the business, which was really exciting. And I think anyone who wants any experience either in retail or in business in general, it's really good to get a lot of experience actually on the ground and maybe dealing with customers if that's what your industry entails. So I did that for 2 years and then moved to London, did my master's, and then I worked at Louis Vuitton and Burberry. Moved to Singapore, where I've been here for 9 years. I worked at a company called Club 21, which is like a luxury franchise distributor here in Singapore. I don't know if you guys know about Club, but we manage like Issey Miyake, Comme des Garçons, brands like that. And I guess, long story short, retail definitely is not the same industry that I joined many, many years ago. So I said to myself, how do I want to kind of make sure that my career has longevity? And I was lucky enough to be hired by Apple. So I work at Apple, and I would just like to say I'm here on behalf of Apple. This is everything that I'm saying now is my opinion, but just to like connect the dots for you, to me, Apple really is the luxury brand, and this is just my opinion. Yeah, the luxury brand of tech. And I currently work at Apple Retail, and I don't know if you've been in one of our stores, but it's very familiar to me because our attention to detail, our putting the customer, always putting the customer first, are tenets that are very similar to what I am used to from luxury fashion. So that is how my long and winding road of how I got to work in tech.
Great, awesome. And Viju, you've had a more traditional career path in tech. So maybe talk a little bit about some of the different roles that you've had and the different types of companies you've worked for in tech.
Yes, I will. It is definitely more traditional, less exciting than this one. But I would say, it all started with my internship, right? And I think it's extremely important. I would say to students, pick the right internship, because that kind of determines what you will probably do when you first come out, right? Most of the time. And I had a choice between Bloomberg and Intel, right? It was kind of a very different choices. Bloomberg also in the tech side of things, but Intel was really hardcore tech, right? Looking at and guess what? First generation of video conferencing 25 years ago, right? And I was involved in that, which is interesting now because we're using this and we don't even think about it. At that point in time, it was cutting edge, right? And I chose to go to Intel primarily because the whole fascination with PCs at that point in time, right? Personal computers and all that. And we didn't have tablets, nothing, right? Our entry to seeing the world, I would say the World Wide Web was really the PC, right? When you had a PC, you could get access to a lot of information, and that completely fascinated me, right? So I decided to do that, go into Intel, work on this, understand how the industry works and whatnot, right? So that was how the interest started. I carried on doing my final year project on video conferencing as well, and took a lot of learnings from what I had with Intel and used it for that. So for me, going into the IT industry after graduation was a no-brainer because I really liked it. I was passionate about it and I wanted to get in. But the funny thing is this, every time I said I wanted to go into the IT industry at that point in time, everybody discouraged me. Guess why? They kept saying, it's a very fast moving industry, right? Sooner or later, you're going to be irrelevant because there'll be someone else who will know more than you will, right? And you're going to not be able to last. You won't be able to keep up and all kinds of things. And for me, that was the attraction, right? The rate of speed in which the industry moves was very exciting. So there is no dull day in IT, right? There's always something exciting happening. From there, I joined a local systems integrator company in Singapore because I studied abroad as well in Australia, and I came back and I said, hey, it'll be good, interesting. And I came back because, my girlfriend then, my wife now, right, she was here. So there was a good enough reason to come back, and I joined the local company, and that was for me my first foray into tech, right? And it was interesting because at that point in time they were really looking for technical people, and there were not that many, and this seems to be the continuous problem in tech because it moves so fast. It's very difficult to find very good technically competent people to take on roles, right? And that's not changed. Even now we are still struggling to hire. There's more jobs to fill than people in tech. And I also, after that, after a year, I joined a conglomerate. Not conglomerate, more like a joint venture between two companies, Motorola and ERG. And we did the cards that you use now, the smart cards and the EasyLink cards for the MRTs and buses and all that. I was project managing the whole MRT system because previously, I think you guys are too young to know, it wasn't the tap system, right? You got to put in the card and it comes out, you take it out, you walk in. It was so cumbersome. So I worked on that project, right? And that was about a year plus. And I had a great opportunity. Again, I had another choice to make, right? I had two opportunities. One was to join either IBM or to join Microsoft. And Microsoft at that point in time was just coming up, I would say, because software was just becoming big. IBM was a traditionally strong IT company, have been existing for more than 100 years. I chose to go to Microsoft because, again, the fascination with software, right? Software was changing the world. Windows 95 was out and already everybody was getting a PC and a lot of things were happening at that point in time, right? And when I went in, I had a fantastic 16-year stint in Microsoft doing many different things, not just in Singapore. I was also posted to Middle East and Africa. I was based out of Dubai for about 3 years. And then I came back and it was, and always working on some level of cutting edge stuff. Even when I left Microsoft, we were the first ones working on the first generation cloud solutions that Microsoft did in Office 365. I always say I had the front row seats to the changes that was going to happen in the industry today. We take it for granted now, but all that was happening I would say about 7 years ago. It was just starting to take shape. So, and then I had this great opportunity to come to an open source company. So on the largest software company in the world, proprietary software company, to the largest open source company, software open source company in the world, right? And that's been going on for 4 years, and it's been an eye opener because open source is really kind of ruling the world. Everything you think of is open source now, and funny enough, we got acquired by IBM, so it's a big circle, right? I've come back again, and last 2 years ago, 1.5 2 years ago, and it was the largest software acquisition in the history of software acquisition, right? So that is it's been quite an amazing journey in that sense. Multiple roles. Every role was a combination of tech and sales, I would say. I have, and also after that, like what my professors used to tell us in uni, right? You will stop using all your tech knowledge after about 2 years because half of you guys will become managers and all that, and that's true enough, right? But the tech knowledge really helps us even till today.
Great. Thanks so much, Viju.
Yeah.
Thanks, Liz, also. By the way, mentees, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. So just to recap, a lot of experience in the room here. We have Liz on the retail side as well as the retail operations side of tech. Viju has had technical roles, sales roles, new product development roles, general management roles. So lots of roles here. For our mentees who are mostly in non-tech disciplines, so a lot of them come from a business or accounting or finance background, what are some of the non-tech roles that you hire graduates into?
I can take this one.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I forgot to mention, sorry, as Viju, as you were going through your roles, I'm like, I haven't mentioned what roles I've been in. So I'm also a chartered accountant. So when I was at Louis Vuitton, I was lucky enough that they actually sponsored my chartered accountancy. So I did that for 2.5 years. And then when I was at Club, I was in Burberry, I was in merchandising. So I would say that at least in the company I work in now, there are a lot of non-technical roles, and so many more than I would have ever thought. Which is why I think, Viju, it's good that you and I think we're like very well matched, because you can talk about the technical side and I can talk about, people who don't know how to use Python, which is me. And so I would say, at least at the company where I work, there's so many roles where, and this is definitely, I want to leave, I definitely want to get across to you guys, is that just because, you don't have to be a programmer or be good at code or want to be an engineer to work in tech. I mean, like, honestly, it surprises me every day that, like, I work in tech, because before I joined Apple, I was definitely, I would say, not so tech savvy, but somehow it's happened. And yeah, I think there are lots of things that you can do in tech that aren't technical, right? You could work in legal, you could work in finance, you could work in the store. Like, we have stores. I know other hardware brands have stores as well, right? You could be in store management. You could work in supply chain. What else is there? You could work in sales, right? And I do think that an interest in technical products, be it hardware or software, as you rightly said, Viju, is not a requirement, but it definitely helps, right? Let's just say you want to sell something, it helps that A, you're interested in what you're selling, and B, you know a little bit about the tech specs of what you're selling. So that does help. But that doesn't mean that you have to be necessarily a programmer, if that makes sense. Even at, in our stores, we even have, it's not based here, but there's even like a traditional merchandising department that, for example, that I would have worked at, at Club 21, right? Where you go and you look at different products and you bring them into our stores. What we sell in our stores, they're not all our brand. You could buy, for example, cases or different chargers that are not branded, not our brand, right? And there's an entire department that goes and sources those. And, and they're not, most of them, I would say, are not coders either. So there's definitely a lot of entry points and a lot of diverse jobs that you could do and still work in tech.
What are some of the most, and I'll reach out, what are some of the more interesting non-tech jobs that you would recommend to our mentees to look at? Because they're new to this field, they may not be familiar with some of these roles that are out there. And Viju or Liz, if you...
I can talk a little bit about that and of course pass it on to Liz, right? There are lots, right? And this is the best part about the tech industry, right? You could do anything. You could be in PR, you can be in HR, you could be in accounting, because the industry is big enough and the companies are large enough to have pretty strong teams. You can be in operations, for example, right? And do that as well. I also manage a team which looks after enablement, right? That means basically they look after trainers who train tech folks. Although, tech knowledge is, it's good for the roles, none of them are techies, right? They all have marketing background and business background and whatnot. And their whole idea is how do you bring knowledge to the teams across the board? And those kind of roles are a lot to do with, coordination, trying to, understand what's the requirements, putting that together, and, getting the right people who have got the tech knowledge to train the rest of the folks in the company, right? And likewise, the roles that we see for the junior roles are going to be very related to marketing, for example, because they always need junior marketeers, because there's a lot of work to do in marketing, right? Fronted by senior marketers, there's always junior marketers helping them to, craft the right stories and whatnot, right? From a PR perspective, craft the right, marketing plans maybe, and getting that experience there, right? We do see a lot of youngsters coming in there, primarily also because of how we're using social media today, right? It's very important for us to get a very diverse workforce which understands how to connect with different types of people, right? If you look at tech covers all, the entire range, and it's extremely diverse, from the really tech savvy folks to the aunties and uncles who have to use, the computers and phones and whatnot, right? So we need to reach out to all of them. So there's avenues in which you can do that. And we're looking for a lot more youngsters to come in, right? Young graduates to come in to do that. The other one, I always feel that, there's a lot of opportunity, especially in big companies where they do have graduate programs, and the graduate programs runs for a year, 2 years maybe, and they put you through many different parts of the business, right, to learn about the business, like be it in HR, be it even in product marketing. I've had lots of junior product marketers in the company. Those are areas that you could look at as well to try and drive, to try and understand the industry. My view has always been the same. When you're starting off, try and do as many things as possible and try and understand the industry you're in, right? And what are the key factors that move the industry. That's the objective really at the start. And those are some of the opportunities that's available. I'm not talking about the tech side of things because there's a lot there, but at least from even HR, right? We have got juniors who help us to coordinate a lot of things within, like just from the interviews to find the right candidates, to understanding profiling, how do you profile candidates and all that. Those sort of things as well are available, and some of the juniors do an amazing job. And I'm always surprised, at what they bring to the table at the end of the day. Liz?
Yes, actually, so what you described in terms of the training program where you work in a bunch of different departments. I mean, I went through one of those, many years ago, and I do agree. I actually think that that's a really, really great way to A, learn about your industry, but B, learn about yourself, right? And like what you could just be like, oh, I want to be a buyer. And then you actually do a stint in the buying office and you're like, actually, I don't want to be a buyer. But at least it's kind of like try before you buy, right? And I think that's actually a really good thing. And we actually have a program like that within operations at the company I work at. And it is exactly that. It's like you do 6 months, I would say, like in specific roles, like around operations, and then eventually you get placed in a department. So, and Viju, I actually agree with what you were saying before, just about kind of like marketing analytics. I feel like that actually is a really, really, that would be like, for me, that would actually be a really interesting path, because I think I'm not so familiar with social media and different platforms and things like that. But what I can tell you is that is what you guys 100% bring to the table, right? Digital natives, like, all your different platforms and posting, and can probably do it with like 2 fingers. And I think that is something, like, if you couple that with like, you can really even craft a strategy and how to reach out to new and younger customers. And that's something that, like, myself, and I'm gonna try to speak for you, Viju, but I feel like that would be, less in our comfort zone. And that's sort of what we'd rely on, like, more junior and younger people who are just starting out to help us with. So yeah, but I think it also depends on what you want to do. Like, if you are like, I really want to try working in HR, apply to like a more traditional HR role just in a tech company. No reason why you can't do that.
Great, thank you. So again, mentees, if you have any questions, if anything that Viju or Liz said that sounds really interesting and you want to ask them a specific question, please, this is your chance to do it. And I know we have a couple of people who are not on camera as well. So if you do have questions, please, this is a golden opportunity to ask any questions. Anna, Zoe, Philbert.
Hi, Liz. You stated that you work in merchandising, right?
Yeah.
What kind of merchandising do you do?
So in my old role, in my old companies, yes, I worked in merchandising. So I was a buyer for women's shoes at Saks, and then in Burberry, I worked in women's wear for both in London and New York, and then in Club 21, I was the brand manager for Issey Miyake, Issey Miyake. But now I do something totally different. And I'm the commercial manager for Apple Retail for Australia, Singapore, and Thailand. And that really it's more like a strategy role. So kind of figuring out, and also dealing with like commercial partnerships and things like that. But I think what I would say is it's similar to what I used to do in merchandising, in the sense that you are looking at a market and you're looking at a product and you're trying to figure out what is the best way to market and distribute and display your product in the particular market that you're looking at. and also dealing with a lot of external vendors, external parties, which is what I do now, except before it was Issey Miyake, and now I'm dealing with like Singtel, StarHub, Telstra. So it's similar skills, just applied in a different industry.
Oh, so it's like a carry-on skill that you can apply in many industries. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a very good point, that Liz has made, Zoe, that, wherever you start, and I think Viju made that point earlier on, wherever you start, you're building that foundation, and a lot of skills, no matter what industry you start in or what company you start in, you're building those skills, and you'll find that a lot of those skills will transfer, right? So especially skills like sales skills, people management, account management, these are a lot of skills that can apply in many areas. And as Viju said, the world is evolving so fast. The jobs that he sees now were not available when you started, Viju.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to talk a little bit more about.
I think that's a very important concept. Even when we do our individual development plans within the company today, one of the things that we really focus on, and I tell my team, is focus on competencies. What do you want to build? What kind of competencies? Where is your passion? And what is it that you really want to build on, right? Is it the tech skills, you want to be really good at technologists? Is it management skills, you want to become a real strong manager? Is it more into the marketing side of things because you want to become a marketer? You want to move out of tech and become a marketer? Focus on the competencies, because the jobs come and go, right? I give you an example in the IT industry. It's so interesting because we were talking about it the other day. System admin, who used to look after PCs and to servers and whatnot, right? The numbers are coming down dramatically. Why? Automation has taken over, right? And that's really mundane sort of jobs, but people have been doing it for years. That's going down, and all of them are becoming architects now, solution architects, thinking about doing more analytical work, thinking about more like, how do I now use the knowledge that I have of the systems to build even better systems, right? And that they have kind of pivoted off as well. So jobs will keep changing. 5 years ago, if I spoke to you about artificial intelligence and machine learning, nobody would have thought that there'll be a job, right? It is now. That's all you see. More and more people coming out. So many courses in universities about that, and it changes very quickly. But the competencies don't change, though, right? The kind of things that you like, what you were mentioning, the kind of things that you pick up, account management skills, people skills. All the rest of the skills don't change, right? You just get better and better and better at that with experience. So the objective is to try and make sure that you build those competencies, because it's transferable. Similar to Liz, right? She was in an industry which is not tech, but she could transfer the entire skill into the tech industry. And in the tech industry, that whole retail thing never existed, right? Or it didn't exist like how it exists today, right? Apple was leading the way, of course. And these are the things that you possibly need to think about. The other thing that I'll mention is when you do get the opportunity to get into tech, and you might have multiple opportunities, look at where you can have the most amount of learning and not necessarily the most amount of growth, right? Because the tenure within companies is becoming shorter and shorter and shorter. It's very difficult to find people staying in one company for more than 20 years, right? Like my dad used to say, you should stay in a company for 20 years, right? I don't think that's possible now, but it changes so quickly, right? Within 3 to 5 years, people move, right? Or if they don't move within 3 years, they take on a new role. I've hardly done a role for more than 3 years, right? You take on new roles over and over again. So I think that's also something that you need to think about, right? Things change very dramatically in the tech industry. Jobs also get lost very quickly because of the rate of speed of innovation. Okay, Adelaide.
Thanks. So before we go to another topic around recruiting, any questions on different roles or functions that any of the mentees would like to ask? So if you've been looking at jobs in this space, what kinds of jobs or programs have you been looking?
I'd like to ask Liz about her role as a commercial manager. Can I ask, what's your, what do you enjoy most in your job currently?
I guess what I enjoy most is building relationships. So I enjoy getting to know people from both within and outside my organization, and together kind of like having a partnership, a business partnership, and then also seeing kind of like what we can achieve when we work together. I really enjoy that aspect of my job. And as Viju was saying, I mean, that's something that you know, I learned or I practiced in all of my different roles before. And I guess now one thing is, when I started this role, I knew nothing about carriers. I knew nothing. I mean, besides like going to Singtel and re-upgrading my phone, that was literally all I knew. And I think when I started in this role, I really was really pushing my comfort zone a lot, because I was in fashion for a really long time. And when you're in fashion, when you're in any industry for a really long time, even though it could be different companies or different roles, you just get really comfortable with the kind of people that you interact with the product, with, you know, the different seasons. It just becomes comfortable, right? And then I have to say, when I started in tech, it really was like ripping a Band-Aid off and saying, okay, I really need to up my game and really learn a lot about this space. And even though it was hard in the beginning, I'm not gonna lie, like it was hard, I feel like I'm a better person for it. So I really enjoyed that aspect, just about learning from myself. But then I guess just looking at the actual job, I would say it's relationship building and relationship management. I enjoy that.
Thanks
Right.
for sharing.
Maybe Liz, while you're on that topic, walk us through a first year new hire into a commercial role. What would they be doing? So first,
Well, we don't have that many junior people on my team, but I guess if I had a junior person, what I would ask them to do is I would first ask them to sit and like absorb, right? Like I would bring them in meetings, right, with my different like internal, external parties, just sit and absorb. And I would really want them to learn as much as they could about our industry, but then also, you know, it's not just hardware, right? It's also about carriers, it's about customers, it's about what are the different markets, like what is Australia, what is Singapore, etc. How do they buy? I want them to absorb. And then I guess moving forward, I would want them to really have a think about how we could outreach to different customers, right? You know, different, I guess, younger customers. I want them to help me, I guess, learn a little bit more about their customer segment. I would want them to teach me about things that I don't know about how the younger customers buy.
great, thanks. And how about you, Viju? Let's say you have someone who has a business background who joins, could be Red Hat or could be one of the, their companies they're familiar with, say in a role that is business centric, so like a product management role. What would a first year associate in that role be doing on a day-to-day basis?
I think the first 3 to 6 months, they will normally spend a lot of time understanding about the products, understanding about the market, understanding about the kind of customers that we are after, right? Because every company has got a segment of customers they go after, right? I mean, there are customers who are, I mean, there are companies which go after, the consumer space, right? And the others from the business space. So you need to understand that, because it's very different, right? The consumer space and the business space can be quite different. Learn about the challenges. We go through a lot of that, right? And a lot of the theoretical aspects of it is taught during the first 3 to 6 months, I would say, right? We don't put them in front of customers. We don't, give them a huge project to manage, because it's going to be tough. You wouldn't be able to handle it. But the first 3 to 6 months is really being a sponge, I would say, and just trying to absorb as much as possible and learn as much as possible. The first 6 months is always very hard, because you're learning about the industry and, you're being pushed a lot to, keep up understanding what's going on. Sometimes when you walk into meetings, you will not understand head or tail. The whole discussion will be in acronyms sometimes, and you'll be like, what is going on, right? And it's really about understanding all that, and and what is top of mind for the customers and what is top of mind for the company, right? Two, I think is really spending time to apply that, right? And we, after the 3 to 6 months, we do a lot of shadowing, reverse shadowing, and then trying to put them in some of those situations where they can apply what they've learned, right? For the tech side of things, it's really the technical projects and all that. For the non-tech, would be handling a certain aspect of a project, like product marketing is what you spoke about. A new product is going to be launched. They will be part of the team working on an aspect of it, because product launches means a lot of things, right? There's the social media aspect of it, trying to drum up interest. There is that whole event, when we could do events live, on running the entire event, right? And now even online, it's even harder to try and get people attracted to that, and getting them involved so that they can feel what exactly is it that how is it like running one of these things, right? And we do quite a lot of that with the younger ones. And the third aspect of it is, and this is a very important aspect that people don't realize, is understanding the culture of the company, right? And every single tech company is different, right? In their culture is very, very, very different. And you are really looking for a place where it aligns with your values, aligns with what you want to do. So most of the, within the first year, people know whether I like this place, I like the industry, whether I want to stay in or not. And the culture aspect of it is very important, because some are really open companies, right? Red Hat is an example of that, because we follow the open source values in the way we handle or make decisions. And some can be quite narrow in the way they're doing this, primarily because that works for them, right? That's how their industry works. So you need to really understand the culture of the company as well, because that would help you for the years to come. Because even when you become managers or leaders and whatnot, you will be able to apply that and groom talent through through the right way. I would say from the cultural aspect of things. So it's be a sponge, learn as much. When you're given an opportunity to apply, do the best you can to do. You're going to fail, trust me, that's going to happen. But you need to take that learnings and make it just better and better and better, right? And finally understand the culture of the company.
For our audience who may be very new to the working world, are there distinct sectors within tech with very different cultures? So for example, hardware versus software, consumer versus B2B. Are there some segments that they may need to look at where there's very different cultures? So they decide, maybe Viju?
Oh yeah,
Liz.
Oh, well, I can say that I, at my company, I've actually worked in two very different divisions. So I worked in supply chain. So I helped run the retail part of the supply chain for Asia for Watch and Mac, and then I moved to retail. So I've been in retail for a year, but supply chain for 2 years prior to that. And I would say even like within our company, it's quite different. The culture was quite different. I'm not saying that one is better than the other. It's just it is very different, because supply chain, I would say, is very focused on getting the supply in the right place to the right place at the right time. And if you think about just how many units we produce, right, and where we produce it and how we get it to the right place in the right quantity is phenomenal. I mean, it's amazing. And I would say that definitely that part of my company, at least, was a lot more numbers focused, and a lot more. And the way you convince people, I would say, is through data, lots and lots and lots of data, which is fine, right? And it makes sense given the fact that it's that kind of data-driven department. And what I would say, where I work now, it's more about the customer experience. And I know that's what the numbers say, but like, how does this affect the customer, and a lot more. And so that kind of permeates into, I guess, into the culture of retail, right? But what I will say is that overarchingly, I think within Apple, we do have one of the tenets I would say is that we have a very, very big focus on inclusion and diversity, and also like bringing your authentic self to work, right? And just being able to like be me, be who I am, you know, not hide, not feeling like I would have to hide like any portion of myself. Yeah, when I'm talking with my colleagues is I would say something that is throughout the company. But I do think like within the company, there's definitely little pockets of different cultures and different departments. And I think you just have to find out where you fit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I completely agree, right? Depending on where you are, you would see the balance shift between, the numbers, looking at the numbers, and really numbers driven. If you're in sales, you can forget about it. It's always going to be numbers, right? You can't run away from it. If you don't like the numbers, if you can't go to bed with a quota on your head, don't do it, right? Because you'll just be so upset and it'll affect you completely, right? But at the same time, there are other parts of the business which like marketing, right? Marketing is very, very focused on how do we reach out to as many people as possible in the shortest span of time, and the stickiness factor, right? Keep them coming back. Those kind of things need a lot more creative energy in terms of trying to figure out how do we do this. These numbers driven still, don't get me wrong, they measure everything, but the creative element is what really matters there, because when you can come up with some great ideas with the least amount of resources, it'll be fantastic, right? The kind of results that you'll get. So I think it's a balance across the board. Adeline, you mentioned about different industries in different parts of the business, right? B2B is very different from B2C. It's very different from a hardware to software. I would say that's very true, right? Because hardware side of things and hardware companies are very driven by numbers, in the sense that the margins are thin. And I'm talking about really about the companies which sell servers. HP is a classic example, Lenovo, all those players, where for them, everything matters, right? Because it affects the cost, affects the margins, affects the price that you go out there and sell things at. At the same time, software industry is slightly different, right? Because software has got a higher margin, right? We've got a lot more dollars to play with. And if you notice that's why software companies always have a big war chest of cash, right? To invest in things and to buy companies and whatnot, right? Invest in new tech and whatnot. So their focus is slightly different, right? Although the numbers are important, but it's also about the future. What can I do today to come up with the next best product in terms of software? How can I use the latest and greatest technologies and stuff like that? So with that comes a different culture, right? People are, short-term focus versus long-term focus. I would say dollar focus versus, customer centricity. Those kind of things are always going to be in balance throughout. I'm not saying that nobody cares about the customer. They only care about numbers. But there's always a balance, right? One will be more than the other within companies, or one will be more than the other across companies as well. Depends on what they're looking at. So that's something that you learn, right? When you get that experience with different parts of the business. I just want to add one more thing to this. I think one thing which is extremely, extremely important, which has really helped me throughout the entire thing, is mentorship and coaching, right? Even when you get into companies, I know that you all are getting mentored by all of us, but when you get into the company, look for someone who can teach you, right, quickly, right, and who have walked the path, so to speak, right, and help you understand if technology is something that you're weak at. Get a technologist to help you. If it's the sales side that you want to learn, get someone from the sales segment of the business to help you through that. But that's never going to end. I still have mentors and coaches even now. It's never, ever going to end. You got to continuously do this, again, because of the fast pace and fast nature in which the tech industry moves. I think you're muted, Adeline.
Sorry. So,
hey, Adeline, can I just add something to that?
Yes, please.
Hey, and so Viju, I think you have a really good point. And one thing that I realized recently that I wanted to share with you guys is the difference between a coach, a mentor, and a champion. And I think that as you guys navigate your career, and as we are all still navigating our careers, it's never really ending until you retire. knowing what they are, those things are, and the difference is important. So a coach is someone, let's just say you want to improve your presentation skills, right? So you can hire a coach or ask someone to coach you on that specific skill, and there's a deliverable, like I want to get better at presenting to the team. And then there's a mentor. So that'll be people like us, right? Who maybe are in the same company, could not be in the same company, maybe, are just, several decades over, who've kind of been there, done that, lived life a little longer, and kind of just like helping you figure out, figuring out the path that's suitable for you. Right. And then there's a champion. So a champion is someone who, and this is just my view, right? So you guys can have different opinions, but a champion is someone who tends to be a lot more senior and is someone who is in a position of influencing or making a hiring decision that could help you kind of navigate the corporate ladder. Right. So that's a champion. So that could be like, oh, I worked with, I could be, this is not true, but let's just say I was like much more senior and be like, oh yeah, I work with Viju. I really, he did really well on that project and he'd be really great for XYZ, right? And then because I'm in that position, I can help influence the decision maker, or I could be the decision maker and like who to put where. So knowing, I guess, like those three different categories, I think will help you in navigating your career going forward.
Great, thanks so much, Liz. That's a really, really useful distinction. And I think one that, the earlier someone who starts their career realizes it, the faster it can help them progress. Awesome. So very conscious of time. We have, I would say, just shy of 10 minutes. Anyone have any questions on roles, functions, culture for Liz and Viju? If not, I'd like to go into some of the practicalities of recruiting, because that's probably where everyone is at. Okay, so recruiting. So Viju and Liz, as people, as you have brought different people into the organizations, what are some things that makes a candidate stand out, especially someone who is new to the workforce, who has just finished their degree or diploma and doesn't have a lot of work experience? What do you look for?
I think, we look for more than grades. Let me make it very clear, right? It's we really are looking at what else this person has done, right? The diversity of experiences, right? Be it outside of school. I'm always interested to see if the person has played sports, has done, team sports. Why? Because it shows that they have, been able to work in a group, work in a team, and if we are looking for somebody with leadership qualities, for me, the way we look at it, right? Usually, most people who apply for the job, their grades are around there. They know what they know about tech, or if they're in the tech side of things, or in the other side, they would have done fairly well, right? And we are looking at always, the extras, right? What else have they done? Where have they got extra experiences? What can they bring to the table? Even things that they have done with regard to social media. They've done a social media campaign for some charity. That is, for me, very interesting, right? Because that shows that they've done something outside of their comfort zone, which is extremely important. Why? Because change is the only constant in the IT industry. There is change all the time. If you're not agile, if you're not able to do things outside your comfort zone, if you're not willing to change, it's extremely hard to keep up and be happy in the industry, right? There are people who don't like change, don't like rapid change, I would say, and who would like to be in an industry where it doesn't change so much, right? Oil and gas is a classic example, right? The way you do oil and gas has not really changed, as much. And there are engineering fields that is not changed that much as well. And then people stick to that, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But in this industry, change is the constant. So we're always looking at, will they be able to take the change, whatnot, right? The second part of that is the thought process is something we look at, right? So we do ask scenario-based questions all the time. And there's no right or wrong answer, right? We don't, and I'm talking about, apart from if you're doing a tech role, of course, we'll do tech tests and stuff like that, which is like, if you know your stuff, you'll probably pass. But more than that, we look at if I give you a scenario, how do you break the problem up into bits? How do you solve them? How do you state your case? and how do you justify why you would go down that path? Why? Because that allows us to think whether this allows us to see whether this person is analytical, whether this person has thought through, decision making and whatnot, right? Because that's also important for us to see. There's a logical thinking process behind it. Why? In the industry, in our industry, everything is extremely logical, right? And there are things that we do which are complex in nature, but you've always got to break things down into bits and pieces so that you can work on that. So that's also important. For more senior roles, I would say we do case studies. But for the young graduates, no, we do case studies because everybody who comes in for very senior roles know what to say, right? When you go into the interview, they have done multiple interviews. They know what the right answer is. You can never know whether this person can actually do that until you put them in a case study, and then you can ask questions and all that. The final one I would say for objection handling, right? Really, they will always throw a spanner in the works. They'll say, no, I'm not convinced why you're saying that, just to see how you react, right? And that confidence is important as well, right? And these are some of the things that we look at. Even for young graduates, we look at this because these competencies grow as you are in the company, and it sticks with you because no matter which role you do, you should be good at doing that.
Great. Liz, going to share some of what makes a candidate stand out?
Sure, and actually, I'm just going to pitch this. So I'm actually organizing a special session with our Apple recruiters for the mentees, with our mentees, not just my group, but the entire group. And it'll be open to sign up. So I would definitely love for you guys to join. And it's called kind of like what it takes to stand out. Right. And I think, not to ruin their, steal their thunder. I haven't actually sat through it myself, but I think it's about sort of being able to articulate and tell your story. To us, I think, or to me, that's how a candidate really stands up, because you do get a lot of CVs, right? And to the point, a lot of people have really good grades, right? That's just what it is. And I think at a certain point, so for example, for me, I'm under no illusion that I am the smartest or the hardest worker in the world. I'm not, right? And the world just happened to be smiling on me one day when my company decided to hire me. But why, if I think about why they decided to hire me, I think it's because I was able to articulate my story, right? Just about how, I had always worked in fashion, and I was very analytical, and at the time, they needed someone who was able to be analytical, but then also understand watch, right? Because watch has a lot of SKUs and is more of a fashion accessory than, say, someone who is managing a phone, right? And so I think just being able to know yourself, know who you are, which I know is hard and it's always a lifelong journey, and why you're interested in the particular role, and being able to share a little bit about yourself and why, what it is about you that makes you unique, I think is how you can really stand out amongst the crowd. That's
awesome.
my view.
Thanks so much, Liz, and we're really looking forward to this session. I think so many mentees will benefit from it, not just for people interested in Apple or the tech industry, but just in general, right? How do you stand out? Because wherever you apply, you're going to be facing a lot of competition. And like you said, all people have similar backgrounds, especially at an early age. So how do you really make yourself stand out? Great. So we have 2 more minutes. Liz and Viju, if I could ask you to post in the chat a way that the mentees can get in touch with you. It can be through LinkedIn, email, WhatsApp, whatever you're comfortable with, so that anyone who has more specific questions can get in touch with you. And in the meantime, last chance to the mentees. If you have any questions that you would like to ask Liz or Viju. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, hello.
Oh, okay, just in time. Go ahead, Anna.
Now, Elizabeth, you said you are organizing the session. How do we sign up for that?
I will. Okay, so can I
post it
Adeline,
on, yeah, let's post it on the mentors group, and then
Yeah.
we'll also get Tonka to email it out to all the mentees. So we'll get the information out to all the mentees. No worries.
Yes, yeah. So I had planned to post it to like the mentors group and ask the mentors to kind of disseminate it to their groups, but that should be all right, Adeline?
Yes, I think that'll be great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Zoe, you have a question? No? Okay, great. Okay, so Philbert and Yilong, just to make sure you're all good. Okay, so with that, thank you so much everyone for joining, and thank you so much to our two awesome mentors, Viju and Liz, for sharing all your tips, your experience in industry. I think it's so helpful to our mentees as they figure out where they want to go, and also how they position themselves to stand out and to get started. So
Great.
Thank you again, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next session.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.